Today on Mr. Media, I'll talk to virtuoso violinist and four-time Grammy Award nominee Philippe Quint. He's here to talk about his new gig as an actor in the wonderful new indie film Downtown Express. It opens in theaters on April 20th, and 4 days later, his new CD will be in stores and on iTunes. Stick around. This is not your grandmother's fiddle player, folks. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of knuckleheads who don't know a violin from a violet in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. All right, let me see. The last time I stopped what I was doing to listen to a world-class violinist was... Okay, it hasn't happened yet. But after watching after watching Philippe Quint move gracefully between classical violin and pop jazz in David Grubin's new indie film Downtown Express, it is definitely more likely to happen in the future. Downtown Express stars Quint, who's a four-time Grammy Award nominee for his violin virtuosity, as a Russian immigrant struggling to balance his love and respect for his domineering father with his desire to be part of Manhattan's much broader musical melting pot. That, and of course, there's a love story, as his character Sasha meets and plays alongside Funky Ramona, played by another accomplished real-life musician, Nellie McKay. This is an irresistible movie that magically melds the Juilliard School of Music, Russian Immigrant Society, American jazz, and classical music, and not one but two romantic stories. I especially recommend it for inspiration if you have kids studying music in either high school or college. And that said, Philippe Quint, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Good to have you. St. Petersburg meets St. Petersburg. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was always puzzled about the names. You have Moscow, Texas, St. Petersburg, Florida, Odessa,
Mhm.
Texas, and I'm thinking to myself, have people run out of names?
People here are very proud of the St. Petersburg and Russia connection, so this is very nice. And as I was saying to you before we started, had I known that your film starts with a little sign that says St. Pete Express, I wouldn't even had to see the film. I would have had you on instantly. But I'm glad I got to see the film. It's a wonderful piece of cinema.
Great, great. Thank you. Glad you liked it.
Uh, in many ways, you being in Downtown Express, I thought was not entirely unlike your character, Sasha, entering Ramona's world of this downtown, the pop and the jazz, the fusion. It seems unlikely, but ultimately it's a very neat fit.
Uh, I mean, certainly, the story mirrors my life in many ways, and I think it's probably the reason why I got the part in the first place. Uh, y- the way it started is, David Grubin, the director, they were just doing a research on Russian communities, so they were interviewing people that immigrated to the States in the last 20 years. So I was just one of the subjects, and it was my obnoxious idea to ask him to cast me. And then he asked me, "Have I done any acting?" And I said, "No, but the part is very close to my heart." And so David said, "Well, let us develop the script, and then we'll call you." And that sounded a little bit like don't call us, we'll call you. And but sure enough, 6 months later, they did actually call me, and I went for two castings, and they offered the part to me, which was great.
So was the film actually based on your life, or was that coincidental? I'm a little confused about that part.
Yeah, it is actually coincidental, believe it or not. I don't think David had any specific idea which country he wanted to go with. It didn't have to be Russia. It could have been Serbia. It could have been Bulgaria at that point. But I think he decided to settle on Russia since I was a perfect fit for the part. And after talking to me, of course, my part of Sasha got infused with the life of Philippe, and and then as the story was developing, scripts always go through so many different additions and revisions, even during the shooting, that eventually it became as close as possible to me, with a couple of differences, such as my character Sasha is much younger than me. It's much more naive. He's excited about New York. So for me, it was a great challenge to strip off all the Americanism that I've gained over the years, and look at New York as if I just arrived. It was actually, I can't say it was a great theatrical transformation, but it was a transformation in terms of back to the past, back to how it felt, the cultural shock, the New York skyscrapers. It's, everything was new and fresh, and it was great for me to go back and feel that way again, in a way rediscovering New York.
And how old were you when you came to New York?
I was 17.
Okay, so interesting. Yeah, because I was going to say that the materials that I received about some background, reporters always get a little background on films like this, didn't really play up the connection between you and Sasha, which I thought was kind of interesting. So it made me go dig, and I thought, well, wait a minute, you both studied in Russia, you're both immigrants, you both went to Juilliard. I don't know, it seems kind of familiar story.
Yes, it's very, very familiar. I think the main difference between my character and my character and myself is the fact that Sasha is very obedient at first, and then very rebellious, in midway, and I was always very obedient.
Really?
I would never go against my father, or in my case, my grandparents. Juilliard was important. Getting degrees, going to school, discipline, practice, playing in an underground band would not be an option by all means. Hanging out late at night with people that my grandparents didn't know would not be acceptable. So there are a lot of things that I had to dig out from other experiences, and even though still I agree with you. Of course the character is very close to me. I mean, there's no question. Of course, Russian violinist, Juilliard, immigration, everything. Yeah, but acting is still, it's a very challenging process. I have great respect for the craft of acting. It's not something that a lot of people feel. Maybe you show up in front of the camera, say a few lines, and next day you have an Oscar nomination. It just doesn't work like that. And as a professional musician, I knew it right away. So when I was cast in Downtown Express, I actually went to take acting classes with a wonderful teacher in New York, Sandra Lee. Some people may be familiar with her work because she was an original cast of Peter Pan, and she was also in Fellini's La Dolce Vita. So there was somebody who was truly legendary, who really became my theater mom very quickly, and really trained me. So while the film was in pre-production for a few years, in fact, I studied plays, I studied TV, I studied everything. Tried to prepare for the part, and it was extremely beneficial, extremely. So no regrets there.
I wanted to ask you about that, but before I ask you about the acting, I have to ask you this. While you were talking about how you were not the rebellious teen and would not have gone against your grandparents, I did wonder if getting to play this part gave you a second opportunity at kind of an alternative childhood in a sense. You did get to rebel in the movie, and you got to see sort of how that life would have played out had you been a different person.
You're very right about that. It was a very exciting process for me. Definitely out of the box. And sure enough, I had it in me. I had it in me to go out and play with a band, to improvise suddenly on the spot. I greatly enjoyed it. I have to say that this movie made me realize one important thing about myself, is that I actually like to be outside of my comfort zone.
Interesting.
I like to explore, and the movie certainly prompted me to explore further, I started to collaborate with artists outside of classical music. I started my own tango quintet, which is called the Quint Quintet. Um, I I just collaborated with a jazz trio in El Paso, which was also completely new avenues for me. And this is all, it's all part of the process. It's all, everything is so closely linked. I don't feel that I'm going into rocket science by acting or playing with jazz musicians or doing tango, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hear you. Well, so this is interesting though. Now, I was sort of kidding in my introduction to you about having not really, stopped what I was doing to listen to a virtuoso violinist. But what really interested me in the film, and I think that will have great appeal to American audiences who may not have this broad experience with the classical violin, is they see in Downtown Express the violin being played in classical settings when you're at Juilliard and you're practicing, or when you're with your dad and your cousin on the streets playing for cash. And then you're in these nightclubs and you're playing this kind of pop, jazz, modern sound, and people go, wow, okay, I never really thought of the violin in that setting, and it works so well. It sounds like it actually happened for you the same way it kind of happened for the viewer, and that you had this experience. You went, there are other things I can do. I can expand my vision of how I play.
Absolutely. I think we live in a world of hybrids right now,
Hmm.
and people are much more open to experimenting with, different styles, different genres, bringing all kinds of arts together. And, interestingly enough, this is hardly a new concept of bringing arts together.
Hmm.
We can go back in history to composers even like Mozart with the operas, or Wagner more, with inventing the concept of musicodrama, which was a way to bring theater, ballet, and opera all in one.
Hmm.
So that was, a revelation at the time. And right now, so many great classical artists are collaborating with a lot of pop artists, and vice versa. And you have pop composers, well known, the icons of popular music, that are now composing operas and oratorios, and a lot of interesting collaborations out there. So and Downtown Express is certainly, I think, is a great representative of that. Music is unquestionably, you probably notice, is the main character of this feature. And I like the fact that many times the characters can't even find the words, and rather express ourselves with the music.
Hmm. The music, obviously, the classical music, we know who composed that. But in terms of the nightclub scenes and when you're playing with Nellie McKay and the band, who composed that, and did you have any involvement in that?
The music director and the main composer of the film was Michael Bacon, who is, wonderful composer, great friend, just a multi-talented artist. I worked with Michael on many different projects, and he did most of the soundtrack, all of the songs in club scenes, and the general soundtrack. That was all Michael, but we all collaborated. Nellie, of course, contributed quite a bit, and I contributed some of the stuff. And in fact, there's one scene where I'm trying to get into the club, and I need to play something very impressive, to impress my love interest. And of course, it's a very nice piece, but the band is not very impressed because it's just so completely random. Uh, but this was the piece that I did myself. I composed it pretty much on the spot. Also, I think also this was David Grubin's idea, where the first part of the film is a little bit conservative. It's all about discipline, classical music, my relationship with my father. Second part, a lot of it is improvisation,
Hmm.
including the dialogue, including the music. A lot of the music is actually was recorded on the spot. So it's not dubbed in a studio.
Hmm.
Like what you hear is what you get, which is also kind of a rare thing, unless it's a live concert. So certainly a lot of parts of the film feel like a live performance, almost. And of course, David is such a brilliant, documentary film maker, so he really captured the spirit of music making on the spot.
Hmm. Well, and it has that feel. I know the scene you're talking about. I believe it's when you're at the club and you're watching, and then you just suddenly jump up on stage and you start playing, and the guitar player really likes you, but Nellie's character Ramona, she's not really convinced, and it was very cool. And to hear that that was
Yeah,
improvised, makes it all the more interesting to want to go back and see it a second time now. Uh,
right. Oh, good.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, had you met Nellie before the film?
Yes, of course. Yeah, we met several times. We got together in the studio, played a couple of songs together. David wanted to see, if we have any chemistry on screen, off screen. And Nelly is so wonderful to be around. She's a very friendly, quirky, witty, funny girl. Such a brilliantly talented. So it was fun, and of course the fact that we had Michael Hausman as the producer of the film, who is a legend in his field.
Hmm.
Uh, he was just incredible to work with, and uh, made this whole process that much better.
Well, and let me point out, because I have a list of his credits here. He's been a producer
Are you?
on. Can you still hear me, Philippe?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I was just going to point out some of Michael's credits, just so people know who we're talking about. Uh, he's credited with House of Games and Silkwood. Uh, a movie that I liked that few people ever saw. It was One Trick Pony with Paul Simon. A similar kind of thing where a musician steps into an acting part, sort of as a musician. The Firm, Ragtime, Places in the Heart, Brokeback Mountain, All the King's Men, Gangs of New York. I mean, yeah, you got a guy who's got some real experience there. Uh,
Well, there's one film that he did that just makes me bow in front of this person. That is Amadeus.
oh, of course. How convenient that I left that one out.
Yeah, Michael actually, I think, collaborated with Milos Forman probably on 6, 7 features.
Wow.
And of course, when I knew that Michael was the producer, the executive producer of Amadeus, I could not really believe my luck. I had no idea when David first approached me. I didn't know Michael was going to be the producer. And let me tell you, I mean, during the shooting, Michael was of course sharing so many great stories from other film sets. And he told me one thing that I'll never forget, which was, enjoy the set, kiddo. If you ever do another movie again, you'll remember this project as a fun one.
well,
Yeah.
and I got to ask you. We're told as journalists that this is the first time that a classical musician has starred in an American film. Isn't that hard to believe?
Well, it is hard to believe, especially considering how many artists outside of classical music are, transferring into film or merging with film. How many? John Bon Jovi, Madonna, and I mean Alicia Keys. Everybody have done some film work. So, but in classical music, somehow it never really picked up. Although a lot of my idols have appeared in films for like small episodic parts, either like a cameo, playing themselves or a character for 3 seconds. Yasha Heifetz, who is one of my greatest inspirations in life, was in several films, I think, in Hollywood. Then Russian pianist Sviatoslav Richter played the part of Glinka. Isaac Stern played Izai. Gidon Kremer played Paganini. I mean, the list goes on and on, but for sheer screen time, I think I have outdone all of them because apparently, and of course, this is history facts that I'm not familiar with. Apparently, in terms of like a major lead role in an independent film, I don't think there's been a precedent so far. So yeah.
Did you mentioned when we started talking that you actually suggested yourself for the film? Is being in a film something that you had wanted to do, that you had an ambition to do, or was it just that this happened to come right to your doorstep?
I grew up in a very artistic family, so I was always surrounded, even in Soviet Union, in my St. Petersburg, in my St. Petersburg. I used to go to ballets and films and theaters. Our family always hosted all the actors and artists. So I was surrounded by that atmosphere since early age. So I think, it didn't have to be film. It could have been anything else related to arts for me. But film was always something that I particularly liked, and theater as well. I always found it very compelling. I used to imitate all the characters from all of my favorite Russian films since I was 4 years old. Running around, dressing up into different outfits. Doing voices, imitations. This was, uh, I guess, part of me. So, and I guess in the back of my mind, I always wanted to explore that. And and certainly, I was thinking when I came to America, for the first time, I was thinking to myself, well, it wouldn't be nice to be in a film, but as my character in the movie, as my father's character rather says, Sasha's life is always discipline, practice, and that was my life at Juilliard. It was all about discipline, practice, competitions, concerts, performances. Like really just the beginning of building my life in America. So I was thinking, I wish there was some projects that would fall on my lap where I would feel comfortable, and it would be kind of nice if the lead character of this film would be a Russian-born violinist. So and only 7 years later, this project left.
So, do you want to continue to act? I noticed on your website that there after as of like April 1st, there's nothing there. Are you keeping your dates open for acting jobs?
No, no, the website just needs to be
Oh,
updated.
okay.
It's actually going through updates as we speak.
Oh, okay.
My month of April is actually entirely in New York because there are a lot of events going on, uh, a lot of sort of conferences, and press conferences for the movie,
Right.
for the new CD. So this whole month was actually blocked for this. And then starting May, I'm taking off again for 4 months of travel all over the place.
Oh, I thought maybe you were shooting an episode of Law and Order or CSI New York or something.
But the actress that plays my piano mentor, my piano collaborator, she's Linnie McCormack. She's on Law and Order, in fact. So
Oh, hey,
so
it could happen.
I could ask her to be there as well. Yeah. No, but I mean, you're asking me a question that a lot of people have asked me. Like, is it something that I'd like to pursue? Is it something that I'd like to do more of? And the question is, I love the experience. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. The film set is like this multi-leg octopus. Is this strange animal that moves very slowly, but I really did enjoy every bit of it. I was the first person on the set, and I was the last person to leave the set every day. I also wanted to be somehow involved in the scenes where I wasn't part of. I wasn't even part of the scene. So, but anyway, um, yeah. Well, there's been few offers as well. So um, I'm actually reading a few scripts which are very good and very interesting. And if the time allows, perhaps I'll do something.
And what would you like to, I mean, I'm looking at you here, and maybe it's because you're in New York, and maybe because I saw Downtown Express, but I look at you, and I think, hey, this guy could be like in a cop movie, is one of the buddy cops. He's the Russian American cop. He came over from Russia, and he's on loan to the NYPD, and he's playing the Russian cop, and I mean, what would you like to play if you could pick any
Well,
kind of part?
first of all, Bob, thank you very much for casting me.
Least I could do.
Russian cop in America. Uh, Absolutely. If you come up with great script, I'll do it. I mean, it has to be a brilliant screenplay.
I guess I'm gonna have
Uh,
to now.
yeah, but what I love about this film, The Downtown Express, is the fact that it's a movie that is exploring Russian community in a beautiful light, because that's what this community about. It's about music, it's about arts. It was always very intense growing up, and Russians love the music. They love classical music, and for example, there's one scene that took place in a Russian nursing home in Brighton Beach, and David Grubin, he needed to have a gentleman in the first row reading a book, to show that our quartet, our little trio, is performing for this audience that is not even paying attention. So this man started yelling. He says, like, I will not read this book. I will not read this book. And the director says, no, please, we really need it for the scene. So I said, no, absolutely. I will not read book at a classical music concert. Call the supervisor. And the supervisor comes in, and and she says, what is the problem? And he explains to her in Russian that they're making him read the book, at a classical music concert. And she tells the director, says, like, well, this gentleman is right. If he was reading a book, he would be sitting in the last row, not the first row.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's all about respect. It's a very
It was very cute.
yeah.
It was very, very cute, especially shooting in Brighton Beach, because I don't often go to Brighton Beach, but that area of New York is one of the most colorful ones. I mean, the characters, the Russian signs. I mean, actually, it's a lot of scenes from Brighton Beach are actually in the beginning of the movie, so it's very endearing to see something like this. And I think probably the shooting part in Brighton Beach was the fun part, for me at least, with all the Russians gathering in front of cameras, sometimes not really realizing that they're camera shooting, and seeing the violin case asking me, what do I do? And so, just walking into the scene essentially. And as some gentleman wanted to sell a bow to me right there on the spot. And I kept saying, I'm sorry, we're actually shooting a movie here. He says, yes, but when you're done, I will be at that corner. I will hold the bow for you. It's a great bow. You should buy it.
Oh my God.
So anyway, but the film had so many interesting, hilarious scenes, like the off camera, the behind the camera, that now we're talking about, and I start to recollect this, and I miss it. I greatly miss it. Yeah. So yeah, I do hope that if there is another project of Russian Russian cop, Russian American cop, that I'm still surrounded by this incredible team of brilliant people. I mean, everyone on a set was just incredible, from the sort of creativity of David Grubin to incredible leadership with, Michael Hausman, to the, Nellie. And my father character is just a brilliant actor, British actor, Michael Comsty, that people are familiar with. He's been in many films. He was, this was the first time for me where I actually had a relationship with the father.
Mm-hmm.
Yet another thing that I had to explore for the first time. And I have to say that, after we were done shooting the film, I missed having a father. To this day, we still, meet for lunch, coffee once in a while with Michael. and we still call each other, father and son. It's great.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to ask you. There's a wonderful relationship that comes across on screen between you and Michael, and I was curious if that carried past the filming because you two seem you have a very warm relationship on camera.
Before we were shooting the film, I either read somewhere, maybe Fellini's memoirs or biography, where he says that for the time being, while you shoot the movie, everybody acquire a lot of friendships, and it's great. It becomes one happy family for 1 month or 3 months or for however long the movie is. But then once it's a wrap party, everyone is done, and then it finishes. The relationships don't continue because everybody jump into their lives, into their projects, into their other film sets. And I was thinking to myself, how sad. This is really, really sad because I did make a lot of friends during shooting of Downtown Express. Unfortunately, now it's been 2 years that we shot this picture, but I actually make it a point to keep in touch. We still meet with some of the actors, some of the production team for, uh, you know, lunches, coffees, etc. So yeah, so this has been just a phenomenal experience.
Well, when I sit down after this interview to write St. Petersburg Cop, starring you and Eddie Murphy, I will write all of them into the plot.
Fantastic,
It's
please
okay.
do.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to work with them again.
And all right, so just two more things I want to ask you about, and we'll let you go. You've been very generous with your time, and I appreciate that. You have the new CD coming out. What is the title of the CD?
Well, there is no official title of the CD,
Okay.
but I have finally put on record two of my absolutely favorite violin concertos. They are the most popular violin concertos ever written. It's called the War Horses
Hmm.
of our repertoire. Concertos by Mendelssohn and Bruch, as well as Beethoven romances, which all those pieces are really linked together beautifully. Um, so so that's coming out also at the same time as the movie opens in New York. And again, it's completely coincidental. This was not pre-planned. It just happened this way, which is really great. I think I'm doing a performance also in New York at the Joe's Pub on April 23rd, where I'm going to do some of the works that I did in the film
Oh,
and some of the works from the new CD. So that's also very exciting.
that'd be great. And it's a good time for me to mention that I'm hoping that the film does well enough that there is a soundtrack available at some point because I would love to have copies of the music that's in this film. It's that good and enjoyable. And this is someone who's not necessarily someone who sits down and will listen to the violin, but I really enjoyed the stark differences between the two styles that were at play here. It was just really good, entertaining music. I liked it.
Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, I do think that the soundtrack would be also interesting because I hardly ever see a soundtrack or a CD which has 50% classical and 50% pops. I mean that I don't think that ever even been done. And I don't know how well it matches. I don't know if it's gonna sell well. I just think it's an interesting combination of styles.
It
Bizarre and interesting.
And it works because if you've seen the movie, it works. Maybe if you were to hear it outside of the movie, you'd think, why did they put these together? But
Right.
if you've seen the movie, it's very good that
Of
way.
course. Yeah. In context,
Right.
everything works in context. If you try to eat ice cream and mustard at the same time, maybe it doesn't work. You
What do you mean maybe? All right, one more thing I want to ask you about,
know,
Philippe.
maybe I'll tell you. You know why maybe? You know why maybe? Because I've done it.
Oh, this is a real in-depth conversation now. People are going to
was
go, "Wow, I learned so many things about this
it
guy."
was
All right,
yeah,
last
good.
question. So, and I ask you this because I have a 15-year-old daughter who's getting very good at the guitar, and my question is this: you've studied as a young person. You studied music in your native Russia, and then you came to in Juilliard in New York. And I wondered if, as a grown man now, if you've experienced enough of the education, the music education in the United States, that you have any thoughts on the differences between the two systems, and what maybe the American music education community could learn from the way music is taught in Russia.
Well, first of all, I came to the States such a long time ago that I cannot actually comment anymore on what the system is in Russia right now.
Okay.
Uh, Back then, when I just first came to Juilliard and started taking lessons, I think the main difference was approach. It wasn't so much of the technical aspect, because technically it's all pretty much the same school, with very slight differences. But the approach where my Russian teachers would throw things in the apartment or in the classroom. If you're not prepared, I've heard some stories of students just being kicked out, like this,
Wow.
and followed that as their instrument and followed that their case and the music, and with some lovely words like, if you ever unprepared for my lesson again, don't show up. I don't want to see your face, or maybe you can switch to a different instrument or different teacher.
Hmm.
So suddenly in the States, uh, the entire process was so different. The teacher would say, well, how do you feel about this? It's actually explored a little bit in Downtown Express
Right.
as well. When I go to like this first rehearsal with the pianist, and she asked me about my concept of the piece, and I said, my concept? No, you're supposed to tell me
Right.
how I'm supposed to do it, and that's all it is.
Hmm.
So I think the system here prompted me to think a little more. I
Hmm.
would say, to do my own research, my own work, come out with my own personal ideas. And my teacher at Juilliard, Dorothy DeLay, was was brilliant at that. Bringing individuality out of her students. She had an enormous amount of students, and each one of them, if you look even right now, all of her students are still performing in the best concert stages, and not one of them is similar to the other. Not one. Everyone is completely unique, and I think this is the genius of a teacher, to bring this up. So having been through both systems, essentially, I feel that I'm the lucky beneficiary of sort of a very tough and harsh discipline style, and suddenly all turns into how do you feel about it, and the kindness and the generosity and hospitality of a teacher, and I feel that it's important just to find that right balance. So here's my long answer to a very short question.
It's all right. No, it's interesting. It was something I was genuinely curious about. I'm hoping music is something my daughter decides maybe to study as she goes to college, and I think she's got a knack for it, and I'm very interested in it. And as I said again at the top of the show, and I'll end with this: if if a parent is watching this and they're curious about the film, and they have a kid who is studying music, I thought it was a very inspirational film. I couldn't wait to show my daughter the film and see real life experiences with both with Juilliard and in the outside world, and to see them come together and the romance. I mean, it's a wonderful picture. That's really what I want to say. So, folks, listen. You can learn more about violinist.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
I'm very happy that you enjoyed it.
you're more than welcome. You can learn more about violinist Philippe Quint's acting debut in the new indie film Downtown Express at the website downtownexpressfilm.com, or you can look for it in theaters on April 20th. And to learn more about Philippe's day job as a virtuoso violinist, you can visit his own website, which is philippequint.com. You can also order his new CD, which will be out on April 24th, right here at a great price at mrmedia.com via Amazon. So we gave your website. I understand you're also on Twitter and Facebook. You communicate with your fans there?
All of that.
All right. And if people look carefully on your Facebook page, they will see that you had some very special guests at a recent concert, I guess in L.A.
Is it? Yes, I had.
Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah, Jim came, yes, and my friend Joshua Bell came, and Josh Groban also. So, yeah, it's been lovely.
Very nice. Well, Philippe, delightful to have you on the show. Really enjoyed the film. Hope maybe we can get you back another time. And thank you so much for being on Mr. Media.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. For more original interviews, surf over to our main website, mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. If you've enjoyed today's show, subscribe for free to Mr. Media via email, RSS, or iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Another good idea, download our new free Mr. Media mobile app in the Android market. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many parts of the internet. Show your support of Mr. Media by supporting our sponsors, including Audible. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/radio. Again, that's audibletrial.com/radio for your free audiobook. We're also supported by thepartyauthority.us. Call DJ Ira for all your party entertainment needs nationwide at 1-800-DIAL-DJs or visit their website, thepartyauthority.us. If you've got an idea for a guest, a comment on today's show, or would like to advertise on Mr. Media Radio, email me directly at bob@mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. You can also call our 24-hour listener line at 1-727-498-4711. Some messages may be used in an upcoming show. And unless you live next door to Mr. Media, there may be a toll charge. You can also follow Mr. Media on Facebook, Twitter, or our new YouTube and Vimeo video channels. Thanks so much for joining us today. I always appreciate you sharing a piece of your day with Mr. Media. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, this is Bob Andelman from Mr. Media. First of all, I want to thank you for years of support listening to this show. We're starting our 6th year, it's hard to believe, our 6th year as 2012 starts, and heading towards our 1,000th online podcast, audio and video. It's pretty amazing, frankly. I remember starting it several years ago thinking this will never last. And podcasts, that's as stupid a word as blogging. But here we are, starting our 6th year and heading up to 1,000 interviews. And I want to thank everybody for listening and supporting the show. I also want to tell you that one of the things that's been very helpful for this show is Stitcher Radio. Yes, this is sort of a commercial. Now, there are millions of smartphone apps in the world, but I only use one several times a day, Stitcher Radio. I build my own radio station to listen to broadcast and online shows when I want and in the order I want. CNN News Update, Onion Radio News, WTF with Mark Maron, MSNBC's Morning Joe, Studio 60, the TechCrunch headlines, and of course, Mr. Media. It's free. It works on iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, Palm Pre, and much more. And you can get it for free for yourself. Try it out. I guarantee you're going to love it. Stitcher.com/mrmedia. That's Stitcher.com/Mr. Media. You're going to love it. And thanks again for supporting the show.